Anybody else? Any last comments from the panel? Andrew?
Paul mentioned that we've already had one of two discussions that we've scheduled for discussing the Carnegie Knight Report. The first one was last Wednesday, the 14th, and we had four panelists, faculty of the School of the Journalism and Mass Communication faculty, and we're going to have another one on the 28th. Again, to discuss the Carnegie Knight Report, or at least to use it as a starting point for discussion about the future of journalism education. But the last thing I wanted to say is about the student. I forget your what's your name?
Me?
Yeah.
Mirov.
Your question about what what are you going to do? What are these dance and film studies? It's amazing what you can discover about what other fields can do for you. And I agree with what Janice said, but I have something different to say, which is we've really suffered, in my view, from a lack of contact from some fields that really would, I think, make your practice as an aspiring journalist much stronger. And I'm not saying you would disagree with that, but film studies, for example, has a whole different tradition of how to teach documentary that is not the way documentary is taught in schools of journalism and mass communication. And that's, in my view, ever since I arrived on this faculty, I thought was a seriously missed opportunity. That the documentary is taught in these two units with different faculty trained from different traditions not speaking to one another. Why was that happening? Why wasn't the aesthetic dimension of documentary, which is of greater concern to faculty in film studies, not important to journalists who think that that there is some way to define, the correct way the correct way of presenting documentary expression, and whereas there's a much more experimental tone to it in the film studies program. I think those things are absolutely beneficial to one another. And as for dance and theater, you just have to go back and look at the New Deal era when the arts really flourished in the United States to a significant degree because the government provided a lot of support at that time. And there was a theater tradition at the time called the Living Newspaper. And there were plays put on about current events, and it was called the Living Newspaper. And it was people performing about current events. And it was exciting, and it drew large audiences in small and large communities across the country. So there are many untested and unexplored ways of energizing the practice of journalism, I believe. Just not to say that journalism is the only thing that we as a group have to be concerned about. We're overrepresented in this room, the students and faculty of journalism and mass communication, compared with what I hope will be the ultimate outcome of this process.
What we're looking at, I think, is an eclectic vision of how these different disciplines and fields can interact and have, as Jeff was talking about, a conversation with one another, because that's the way the world works. Oftentimes it's only in academia that we corner off and partition off these different fields, and there's these rich exchanges that are going on between the arts and computer science and journalism all the time. And I think that we're looking at ways in which that could be facilitated and come up with something very new.
So I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank all my colleagues. I want to encourage you to continue to keep in touch. Input@colorado.edu is the email. Academic review site off the provost, off of Academic Affairs website, will have information about the process, and as it moves forward, there will be the these are all public events, the academic events that you guys, the symposia that are being organized around these kinds of issues are, of course, open to the university community, but open to the general public
They'll be
as
well
well.
publicized.
And we hope to hear from you again. So thank you all very much.